My name's Charlotte Lee and I am the Chief Executive of the Heat Pump Association. So, as Chief Executive of the Heat Pump Association, my role is to manage the collation, representation, and amplification of the voice of our membership on a national platform. As you can appreciate, that gets more and more challenging as our membership broadens and diversifies, but it's absolutely a challenge that I relish, as without understanding the complete picture, the complete supply chain, we can't provide accurate insights. We currently represent over 120 organisations working in the heat pump sector, which includes installers, manufacturers, certification bodies, awarding organisations, training providers, wholesalers and distributors, energy suppliers, and software companies who offer applications and the like to support the installation of heat pumps. And within the membership, our manufacturing members represent around 90% of the volume of heat pumps sold in the UK market today. So we definitely, I can very confidently say that we do represent the complete sector. I get my motivation from the members and what they're striving to deliver and what challenges them. And it's fantastic to have such a good working relationship with them. We definitely hear from them and they definitely engage with us within our forums, working groups, consultation workshops to understand what's impacting them right now, and also motivation from the fabulous team that I work with. So whilst we are small in numbers within the team, we're certainly mighty, and we pride ourselves in accurately representing our members' priorities. Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting looking back, isn't it, and thinking, would I follow the same path that I followed had I known what I know now? And I think the answer, hand on heart for me would be yes. I've enjoyed my career and I'm very much enjoying what I'm doing now. But I've always had an interest in politics and stakeholder engagement. So I studied politics and international relations at university, and I also became the president of the Debating Society at university too. So I guess that gives you a little insight into what I was interested in my youth, having constructive disagreement discussions with others, and we toured the country doing events with other universities. But my interest in sustainability and energy policy, I guess, was triggered initially at university with one of our lectures being on the importance of energy security on election results. And we looked across the globe at what happened at different times and the impact on elections as a result of specifically sort of energy security policy. And I knew that sort of was an area of interest for me. And then I started looking for jobs and went for a job as a policy advisor for an energy consultancy company, which was really interesting. And I guess from an energy landscape point of view, or energy policy advocacy point of view, I knew that the policy landscape in that space was going to undergo significant change during my working life. And you always want to choose something that's got longevity to it, I think, and that will go different places. So that also, I guess, interested or led to my decision. So I was a policy advisor within a consultancy firm to start with, and then I moved to head up. I moved to work within a certification body that certified installers across a suite of building services and fabric trades, and worked my way up there to become head of external affairs. And that role included representing installers, across the whole of the building fabric and services sector, which included heat and included the products that were certified by the Microgeneration Certification Scheme. And that's where I generated more of my interest in the heating transition and specifically heat pumps. But I guess after a period of 10 years in that role, I did feel ready for a change. My babies weren't babies anymore. My youngest had just started school. And I felt I had a bit more time and a bit more energy to give to my career, which is what led me to consider what to do next, or indeed what could I do, right? Like there's always that challenge, isn't there? What's available to you to move to, that you think you can make a difference in. And with the recent focus on energy security and heat decarbonisation within UK policy, it seemed to be sort of a good area of interest to move into. I had some background knowledge, I had some experience working with the installers, but also with the wider policy development. I was aware of the transition that was going to be expected over the next decade. And indeed, it was just a particular focus area. My first client, when I was a policy advisor for the consultancy firm, 13 years ago, was a heat pump manufacturer. So I had always had that background knowledge of sort of what had happened or what was happening in that trade. And then the opportunity came up to be chief executive of the Heat Pump Association. I applied, and I'm very pleased to have got the opportunity to drive that agenda. So I've been in this role for just coming up to 2 years, which is crazy when I think back at that. But I mean, I've received nothing but immense support, really, acceptance and engagement from the vast majority of those that I've met and engaged with. And I say vast majority, that sounds like some people haven't, but if they haven't, it's not, I haven't ever felt that it's because of my gender. I knew when I took this role that I had a lot to learn about the technicalities of heating systems and the heat pump product. I don't pretend to know everything. I don't pretend to be a technical expert, although I am much more technically minded than I was about heat pumps 2 years deep. But I think it's really important to accept and acknowledge that from the outset, so that people don't think that you're either threatening them or trying to dictate something to them when you don't have that deep understanding. And I've been very clear and tried really hard never to to do that, to project myself as knowing everything. I have an eagerness, a real eagerness to learn and to listen. And sometimes listening without really understanding the full detail, you can still very easily pick up what the tricky bit is, where the issue lands, and what needs to be resolved in order to move or disperse the issue. So I think it's really important to sort of generate the trust and compassion from others that you're working with in a way that, you know, you make clear what benefits you bring, and use others around you that have the expertise where you're lacking to support you. And that's around generating trust and being confident enough to say, I need some help, or I don't understand that. And, you know, I have done that. And I think also sometimes asking stupid questions gets to the nub of what we're trying to solve as the issue, and really sort of lifts the cover on some of the sort of nitty-gritty detail. You know, what are we trying to do here? What's the answer that we need to come to? You know, what we trying to achieve? But I mean, some people have said that I've been a breath of fresh air coming in, providing sort of a new perspective on previously accepted positions, or challenging the way things have been done previously to try and get a better outcome, or to get better input from people. And, you know, I welcome that. Nobody knows everything, and we all try different things to see what achieves the best outcome. Ultimately, like, to transition, which is what we're on at the moment in terms of the heating sector and the heating journey, to transition means to change. And we all need to find ways of making that change acceptable and appealing to everybody. And there's no doubt this industry will witness huge growth over the next 5 to 10 years. And with hybrid and flexible working hours becoming more common for all, workplaces are certainly adapting to support family life. I recently met a number of inspiring female apprentices, and there's a particular company I'm thinking of who employs female apprentices to bring them on specifically, and they relish that career choice. They have so much enthusiasm, and I've spoken to them about how they feel working in a male-dominated environment, and they say the same. You know, to me, that the men that they're working with and working around are very accepting of them and as supportive of them. And I think, you know, we've all got a role to play in generating that culture where people feel comfortable in environments that we're going to need to best serve the whole of the industry as we move forward. But I guess my hope really is that in 5-10 years' time, I won't be asked about role for women in this space, but just more broadly about like the growth that's required. And it doesn't matter who fills the growth need, that where we get to. It's ensuring that we've brought, you know, the right people on that journey, those that are interested in the heating transition and have the skills or the willingness to learn the skills to help us get there. Yeah, and based on my personal experience, I guess I'd strongly encourage women to enter and remain in the industry. We need to enable and support a diverse and representative range of views and ideas, and everybody brings a different skill set, and those skill sets aren't good or bad, they're different, and we need a good suite and a broad suite of those interests in order to maximise the outputs and the benefits for all. I mean, this job that I'm in now is definitely my career highlight, in the sense that it's the biggest job I've had in my career, and it's definitely the most challenging but rewarding of all the jobs I've had too. We've expanded and increased the Heat Pump Association's membership by over 120% since I joined 2 years ago, which I think is a massive. It demonstrates the growth of the trade and the industry, as well as I guess our role within it to provide that amplification. So it feels like an endorsement that the association is doing the right things for its members and is gaining the interest of the broader sector, and that growth in membership has also allowed us to grow our team, and that's been wonderful to do. And you know, not because they're women, but we, you know, 4 out of the 5 that work with me are women, and it's wonderful to develop that strong and trusted team. And I guess linked to that as well in terms of the career highlight is we've just been shortlisted for the Trade Association Forum's Most Transformed Association Award. So the announcement of the awards. Thank you. The awards is at the end of this month, so we don't know if we've won, but that's not the point really. The fact is that we've been recognised as a shortlist within that category, and I think it plays to what the members within the association have allowed us to achieve within the last 2 years. And yes, the figurehead of my face appears over lots of in lots of magazines and quotes over our social media, but you know, we're nothing without our members and what they allow us to do and what they tell us and explain to us to enable us to represent them, and it's brilliant to be able to be doing that in a way that's recognised, I guess. So leadership style, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, I've always been, well, my mum used to call me bossy, whereas I don't agree with. I just like to get things done in a way that is swift and efficient. So, you know, read that as you like. But I hope my team wouldn't say I'm bossy. I expect a lot from them, but I also give a lot. And I think it's that ethos that you create within that team to show that they're not alone, that you're always there to support them. But I also like to provide opportunities for ownership of tasks, because I think it's really important that they feel that they have a responsibility and control over an output, and that it is then credited to them. So, you know, the outputs created and provided by the team with input from all of us, but the ownership remains and the credit is then theirs. And I think that's so important to empower that people to take that responsibility and to take ownership of tasks. And as you get busier, leadership style changes, but life changes. You have to loosen the grip on what's happening and what's getting out there, because you risk stifling activity. And I've always said that I never want to be a blocker. I never want to be a blocker to getting things done. So you have to loosen that grip, create the empowerment, and trust colleagues. And that trust is built and developed over time. And you have to make sure that you've got the policies and the documentation in place so that people don't feel abandoned, because that's absolutely not where they go. And I'm sure the team would say that they definitely don't feel abandoned. But I'm very action driven. So we work on the outputs. Where do we want to get to? And then we work back to how we're going to get there. And that's based on sort of lists and plans. And we catch up monthly to make sure that all of those priorities that we've committed to within the work plan are delivered. And if not, we discuss why and how we change those plans. You know, they're not fixed. Everything's not fixed, neither are any timescales. Priorities change, and we're flexible in that sense. But we always know where we stand, and we support each other, which I think is crucial to building that team that want to do well, that want to deliver for you. I mean, multitasking is the easy answer there, and that covers all of the skills. But you know, to be serious about it, I think what's really helped me is trying to be, to the best that you can, proactive. Like proactively identifying potential points of concern or irritation and taking swift action to mitigate these. I'm very much of the view that we lift the hat on problems, we don't solve them. If there is something that's going to be contentious because a number of different organisations do it differently and they all think they do it the best, or there's a concern around whether or not a standard is being met appropriately, or different interpretations of that standard, for example, you know, it's much more useful and valuable to acknowledge that and to work together to find a solution, rather than either hide it or ignore it. And I think, you know, we do that within the team. We draft policy positions, we draft proposals based on what we think, you know, the conversations that we've had might work. We take the feedback, we do as the members advise, but within the members as well, if things aren't, if there are concerns or challenges, we will take those and have separate working groups focused specifically on them. And I think that's really important. Prioritization is another one. You know, what must I do today and what can wait? And I've learned that over the last couple of years. You know, there were lots of times when I was working, you know, across the weekends and into the evening because I wanted to get everything done. And I've realised that you can do that for a time and you can ask your team to work harder for a time, but it's not sustainable. And you really need to make sure that you're prioritising what's important. And, you know, other things can fall into a different quarter and it's not going to be the end of the world. But I think, you know, fundamentally, you've got to want to do a good job. You've got to be determined and committed, to want to do the right thing and want to learn. And I think learning how to get the best from people and how different people operate is really key to allowing you to get the most out of your team. And I think I got better at thinking, you know, or planning ahead and putting time in the diary that wasn't taken up by calls, because there's a problem with, you know, the Teams is brilliant. The advent of Teams and virtual communication is fantastic. It enables you to be much more efficient and get much more done. But in a way, that makes life trickier because you're expected, much more is expected from you. And you can spend, many of you might, you know, back-to-back days in Teams calls, but then you've got no time to deliver on any of the things that you've spoken about. And that's what I got better at. You know, at the start of this job, I needed to speak to everybody to understand who I needed to keep speaking to, who perhaps I didn't need to speak to so frequently, to try and understand the sector much better. I feel like I'm getting there. I absolutely don't know everything, but getting there now. And I make sure that I block time out to deliver on the outputs rather than doing them in the evenings. And also just getting better at saying no. Sometimes, you know, we cannot be everything to everyone, and we're not expected to be, really. But, you know, people will ask things. Of course they will. And, you know, sometimes you have to say no, and I don't like saying no, really, and I try my best not to, but there are just some times where, you know, it's not appropriate, or it's not the time to deliver on an output isn't cost effective, or you know, doesn't give you the benefit that it needs to in order to take that time. So getting a bit smarter, I think, really, with time management, which is easier said than done, right? As demand for heat pump installations grows, and, you know, looking at demand, we're looking at an expected projection of 1.6 million heat pumps being installed per year by 2035. Like, if we put that into perspective, last year we saw 98,000 units sold in the UK. So there's exponential growth that we're going to experience over the next decade that is going to drive a big increase in the workforce. Workforce for installers, workforce for manufacturing, workforce for designers, across the board of the roles needed to install heat pumps. And we need, as a sector, we need to ensure that the talent for those roles comes from all backgrounds, not only in order to meet the installation targets that we've set out, or the government have set out, but also for strengthening consumer trust in the technology. You know, homeowners need to feel confident that the heat pumps will keep their homes warm, and we need to have a well-trained representative workforce to play a role in that. And you've seen, you know, I've seen some companies in London setting themselves up and differentiating themselves purely based on being female, because some householders prefer to deal with females, and that's their choice, and that should be open to them and an option if they wish. But, you know, a more diverse workforce, and that may be gender, that may be race, but it brings multiple benefits, because it helps ensure that the installers better understand the needs of the different households. It includes practical considerations like language barriers and cultural preferences too. And ultimately, it will increase the number of trained professionals that are available to meet the demand growth. And we need to do that to support the rapid scaling up of heat pump installations. So, you know, we need to foster a healthy, inclusive working environment, and create a sense of belonging, and ensure the installers feel valued, and that they are able to have a fulfilled career in a safe environment. And, you know, I mentioned earlier the company I've got in mind that employ 3 female apprentices or more now, maybe. And they've taken that upon themselves to create that healthy environment, to create the awareness, to allow the females to experience the, you know, the heating sector in a safe space, almost, because it's managed and owned by a woman who understands and has gone through perhaps some challenges, and she's, you know, expanded based on that. But we shouldn't, it's uncomfortable to feel that people may feel uncomfortable to go into this sector. And I think that's what we as a sector need to overcome. You know, it shouldn't be it's male dominated and therefore women can't access. You know, I think we've grown beyond those times now. I think the number one is the growth. I mean, we've heard the Secretary of State, Ed Miliband, you know, hang his hat really on Clean Power 2030, and there's a growth plan. There's a mission control even to deliver that deliver that manifesto pledge. But the opportunity for growth in a very short space of time for the energy sector is massive, and that scale of growth requires significant investment, which will require significant people, and working within the energy sector doesn't always mean getting your hands dirty and doing the on-site installation of a heating system. You know, there are so many different opportunities, and I just ran through some there, but within the space, and I think the growth, the initial growth is a primary factor and a primary area of interest, and then after that, that'll be the norm. So your skill set that you're developing, whilst it's not relatively new, but new. It's not new. The systems and the technology's there, but it's not perhaps as well known as some. You're getting that skill set, and learning those skills. You'll have a head start, because it will be the future. Electrification will absolutely be the future, and not just in the UK but globally. So it would, I'd suggest set you up for a fulfilled career for life. Entering into that space.